June 1935, Queensland, Australia. Cane toads come hopping out of wooden crates, one after another. Hundreds, then hundreds more. In total, 2,400 of them. Scientists are smiling. Farmers are smiling. Everyone is smiling. 90 years later, Australia will be home to more than 200 million of these toads. And that's an optimistic estimate. This is what a good idea looks like when it becomes an ecological catastrophe on a planetary scale. But wait, before you decide this is a story about stupid bureaucrats or greedy farmers, stop. Because in 1935, everything seemed perfectly reasonable. So reasonable that even now, knowing the outcome, it's hard to say, what should they have done differently? That's the real horror of this story. Not that people did something stupid, it's that they did everything right, and still destroyed an entire continent's ecosystem. Let's start at the beginning. Australia in the 1930s is one giant agricultural project. Queensland, the northeast, thousands of kilometers of sugarcane, an entire industry that feeds the country. And this industry has an enemy. The greyback cane beetle, Dermalepida albohirtum. Small, brown, unremarkable, but its larvae live in the soil and eat the cane roots. Fields fail, harvests collapse. Farmers lose money, and along with it, their patience. Someone suggests pesticides, but they're expensive, labor-intensive, and no one knows how to use them on an industrial scale. Then someone else says, how about toads? This wasn't a crazy idea. Biological control, fighting pests with their natural enemies, was already a scientific discipline. Cane toads had already been tried in several countries against agricultural pests. In Hawaii, and apparently with success. There, similar toads eat similar beetles, so it should work. Arthur Bell worked at the Bureau of Sugar Experiment Stations in Queensland. He went to Hawaii, saw with his own eyes how the toads handled the beetles, and came back convinced. This was the solution. He was a smart man, a conscientious scientist. He just didn't ask one question. One single question that would have changed everything. How exactly does the greyback beetle live in Australia? Not in a lab, not in theory, but in the actual fields of Queensland? The answer was right in front of him. The beetle larvae live in the soil. The adults sit at the very top of the cane stalks, 2 or 3 meters above the ground. Toads are terrestrial. They don't climb stems. They physically cannot reach the beetle when it's up there. This didn't require complex experiments. It required one field observation. But that question was never asked. 2,400 toads were released in June 1935. Then more, and more. By the end of that year, more than 60,000 toads were living in the wilds of Queensland. The cane beetles didn't go away, but the toads started eating everything else. Insects, frogs, small lizards, fallen chicks, carrion. The cane toad is utterly omnivorous, and they started breeding. At a rate so fast that scientists initially didn't believe their own calculations. One female lays 8,000 to 35,000 eggs at a time. Twice a year. The eggs develop in 2 days. Tadpoles become toads in a few weeks. An adult toad in Australia has no natural enemies. It was brought from another continent, and the local fauna simply doesn't know what it is. No instinctive caution, no evolutionary experience. And the cane toad has poison, potent, fast-acting, lethal to most Australian predators, bufatoxin. It oozes from glands on the shoulders. Try to bite one, and within minutes your heart stops. This is where the real catastrophe begins. Not when the toads failed to eat the beetles, but when Australian animals started eating the toads. Quolls, marsupial predators, cat-sized, with spotted fur, hunting at night. They saw a toad and thought, food. Bit it, died. Death comes very quickly. Bufatoxin triggers cardiac arrest. Quoll populations in northern Queensland began collapsing in the 1940s, slowly at first, then like an avalanche. Gould's monitor, a large lizard up to 2 meters long, one of northern Australia's top predators, hunts anything that moves, saw a toad, ate it, died. Monitor populations in toad-invaded areas dropped by 80%. Not 20, not 40, 80. Tiger snakes, brown snakes, death adders all tried the toads. Same result. Freshwater crocodiles in some areas declined by 70% simply because young ones tried to eat toad eggs. Barramundi. The fish Australians grill over coals and call a national dish, die from swallowing tadpoles. This isn't exaggeration. These are field study results collected over decades. And each new dataset was worse than the last, and the toads kept moving westward at an average speed of 40 to 60 kilometers per year. By the 1980s, they had conquered all of Queensland. In the 1990s, they entered the Northern Territory. By the 2000s, they had reached Western Australia. Now the invasion front stretches for thousands of kilometers. Toads are already in places where there are almost no people, but wild animals are there, or were. Scientists tried to stop them. God, how they tried. First idea, physical barriers. Stretch a fine mesh fence across their migration path. They built them. Spent money. The toads found holes, went around the flanks, climbed over during the wet season when water levels rose above the fence. The fence didn't work. Second idea, traps. Set them near water. Toads always come to water. It works, but the scale is wrong. To catch 1 billion toads with traps, you'd need 1 billion traps. The math doesn't add up. Third idea, biological control. Find a parasite or disease that kills toads but leaves local fauna alone. They spent 20 years of research, found several candidates. Every time, the result was either ineffective, dangerous to desirable species, or didn't work in the field like it did in the lab. Biological control against a toad, an irony scientists prefer not to notice. Fourth idea, teach animals not to eat toads. Seriously, this is a real program. In several reserves, quolls and monitors were given small toads with a nauseating but non-lethal dose of poison, a conditioned reflex. After a few generations, the animals learned to avoid toads. The program works, but only where it's implemented, and the toad keeps moving into places where no program exists. Fifth idea, genetic weapons. Develop a virus that spreads among toads and reduces their fertility. Sounds like science fiction, but this research is being taken seriously, including by the Australian government. So far, nothing has left the lab. Currently, estimates of Australia's cane toad population range from 200 million to 1.5 billion. The wide range exists because an exact count is impossible. They occupy an area larger than all of Western Europe. Every night they emerge from hiding, eat, breed, kill with their poison anyone who dares touch them. The invasion front moves. It has not been stopped. It has not been slowed. It simply moves. Quolls in northern Queensland are functionally extinct. Some monitor lizard species in certain regions are likewise gone. Ecologists say that in areas of long-term toad presence, the species composition of fauna has changed irreversibly. Not just diminished, changed. Because when an apex predator disappears, the entire food pyramid restructures. Other species emerge, familiar ones leave. It's a different ecosystem now. Not bad and not good, just different. The old one cannot be restored. Now, the question that torments ecologists, historians of science, and anyone who thinks about this: who is to blame? Arthur Bell, the man who brought the toads. He was following the best scientific practice of his time. He wasn't a hack. He went to the place, saw with his own eyes, drew a conclusion. He just didn't know what no one yet knew: that biological systems are unpredictable beyond the environment in which they were studied. The Queensland government that gave permission, it was acting in the farmers' interest. The sugar industry was in crisis. They needed a solution. Scientists offered one, reasonable to agree. The farmers who demanded help, they were losing crops and money. They weren't obligated to understand ecological cascade theory. No one is to blame, or everyone is, which amounts to the same thing. And that is the most uncomfortable conclusion from this story. We are used to a narrative with a villain, a greedy corporation, an irresponsible politician, a lone scientist who ignored warnings. That narrative is convenient. It tells us, just find the villain and remove them, and everything will be fine. The cane toad story says something different. It says that you can act from the best intentions, with the best tools of your time, following all reasonable procedures, and still create a catastrophe that cannot be stopped. Not because anyone was evil or stupid, but because nature is more complex than any model we build of it. Every time we intervene in an ecosystem, we set off a chain of consequences whose end we cannot see. Sometimes it's harmless, sometimes it's helpful, and sometimes it's 2,400 toads in wooden crates, hopping out onto green grass and starting a story that hasn't ended to this day. The most chilling part isn't the scale. It's that we keep doing the same thing. Invasive species are one of the leading causes of animal extinction on the planet right now. We bring in fish that displace native fish. We bring in plants that choke out native flora. We bring in cats, and they exterminate birds on islands where birds never evolved alongside land predators. We keep acting without asking that one question, again and again. If this story struck a chord, write in the comments. Do you know another case where an attempt to solve a problem created a worse problem? There are countless examples in human history, and each one deserves its own conversation. Subscribe if you want to keep having these conversations. The next one will be about something you definitely won't expect. Australia is still looking for a way to stop the toads. It has been looking for 90 years. The toads keep moving west.